Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The evening light slipped through the bedroom curtains, painting golden streaks across the bed. The air was calm, soft music in the background, the faint scent of jasmine from the candle on the nightstand. She sat at the edge of the bed, her robe slightly open at the knee, tracing lazy circles on her thigh without realizing it. It wasn't about seduction, not yet, just the kind of quiet comfort that comes when love feels almost forgotten but not gone. He entered the room with a towel around his shoulders, his hair damp, his eyes softer than usual. There was something different tonight, a slower pace, a gentler tone in the way he said her name. Maybe it was the silence between them, or maybe it was the unspoken apology behind his smile. Whatever it was, she felt it deep inside, that flicker of something she thought they'd lost long ago. When he knelt beside her, offering to massage her legs after a long day, she hesitated, not because she didn't trust him, but because she wasn't sure how it might make her feel. She laughed it off at first, pretending it was just another ordinary gesture. But as his hands touched her skin, warm, careful, and unhurried, the air in the room shifted. The music felt louder, her heart beat slower. Their eyes met, just for a second, but it was enough to make her chest tighten. There was no rush, no spoken desire, just a heavy, sweet tension hanging in the air. She tried to breathe normally, but the warmth of his touch traveled higher, melting away the distance between them. He said nothing. She said nothing. But both of them knew that something real was waking up, something they hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Her body relaxed under his palms, her mind fought between comfort and curiosity. She opened her legs slightly, thinking he would only keep massaging, thinking this was still safe, still simple. But the way his breath slowed near her skin, the way his fingers lingered a moment too long, it was enough to make her pulse race. And in that quiet, candlelit room, the night began to hum with a promise neither of them dared to speak aloud. The sound of rain began tapping gently against the window, as if the sky itself wanted to listen to their silence. She looked down at his hands, still gliding over her calf, his touch deliberate yet uncertain, like he was remembering how to hold her without asking for forgiveness. "It's been a while since you did this," she said softly, breaking the quiet. He looked up, his smile faint but sincere. "You used to love it. Said it made your whole day better." Her lips curved slightly. "That was before life got too serious." He chuckled, the sound low and nostalgic. "Maybe we just forgot how to slow down." Their eyes met again, and for a moment, the world outside disappeared, just two people, bound by memory and something that felt like unfinished longing. She wanted to say something light, something to break the tension, but words refused to come. Instead, she let her fingers brush against his, a simple accident that lasted too long to be one. He paused. Their hands lingered, palms warm and trembling between them. She could feel the unspoken question in his touch. "Do you still want this? Do you still want me?" Her breath hitched. "You should stop before I forget what we were fighting about," she whispered, her voice unsteady. "Maybe that's the point," he murmured, his tone low, careful, but full of meaning. He stood slowly, and for the first time in months, he was close enough that she could feel his breath near her face. The scent of his skin, soap, warmth, something familiar, sent shivers through her. He didn't touch her, not yet. His eyes searched hers, waiting for permission she didn't know she'd already given. She tried to step back but didn't. Instead, she looked down, smiling nervously. "You always do this," she said, barely audible. "Do what?" he asked, his voice almost teasing. "Look at me like that," she said. "Like I'm still yours." He leaned in just slightly, his voice a whisper near her ear. "Maybe you still are." The space between them vanished. His hand lifted, slow, unsure, and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. The warmth of his fingertips against her skin felt electric. For a heartbeat, time froze. She didn't kiss him, and he didn't cross the line, not yet. But as she looked up, their foreheads nearly touching, her pulse told the truth her lips couldn't. Something had changed. Something real. And in that fragile, suspended moment, with rain outside and candlelight flickering, desire quietly found its way back home. The storm outside deepened, thunder rumbling faintly as if echoing what neither of them dared to say. The candlelight flickered, shadows dancing across their faces, two people caught between what they wanted and what they shouldn't. She could still feel the warmth of his hand near her skin, that quiet burn that lingered even after he pulled back. Her heart wouldn't slow down. It wasn't supposed to feel like this, not after everything, not after all the distance they'd built to stay safe from each other's ghosts. He looked at her like he was memorizing her face, as if afraid that if he blinked, she'd vanish. "I don't want to make things complicated," he said, his tone low and strained. "You already are," she replied, trying to sound steady but failing. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Then tell me to stop." Her lips parted, but no words came. Because the truth was, she didn't want him to. Their silence thickened, charged with everything unspoken. When he stepped closer, she didn't move away. Her breath caught as his fingers brushed her wrist, an innocent touch that felt anything but. The air between them pulsed. She tried to look anywhere but his eyes, yet somehow, they always found each other again. "I shouldn't feel this," she whispered, almost to herself. He smiled faintly. "Then why does it feel so right?" Her pulse jumped. "Because we remember too much." He nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "And because we never really stopped wanting it." The confession hung between them, fragile as glass. Her eyes shimmered with something she couldn't name, pain, longing, maybe both. She wanted to be angry, to walk away, but his nearness made it impossible. His hand brushed against hers again, this time slower, deliberate. Their fingers touched, lingered, then entwined for a single heartbeat before she pulled away, breath trembling. "This can't happen," she said, even as her body leaned closer, betraying her. "I know," he murmured, his voice deep, conflicted. "But tell me you don't feel it." Her eyes met his, and the truth was undeniable. The air was electric, alive with everything they'd buried. For a moment, they stood inches apart, her chest rising with every breath, his gaze locked on her lips. One move, one breath closer, and the world would change. But just before it could happen, the sound of a door creaking down the hallway froze them both. The spell broke, but only barely. They stared at each other, hearts pounding, knowing this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The door down the hallway clicked shut, followed by silence, the kind that feels too quiet, too charged. She turned to him, both of them frozen, breaths caught midair. The flicker of the candle cast moving light across his jawline, and suddenly, she was aware of everything, the distance between them, the rhythm of his breathing, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. Her pulse was loud in her ears. "That was close," she whispered, forcing a nervous laugh. "Yeah," he replied, voice low and rough. "Too close." But neither stepped back. In fact, they both leaned in, just slightly, almost unconsciously, until she could feel the warmth radiating off his skin. Her laughter faded, replaced by a stillness that made her chest ache. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was heavy, intimate, alive. He rubbed the back of his neck, trying to collect himself. "Maybe we should stop talking before we say something we can't take back." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "Talking isn't what's dangerous right now." That made him laugh softly, the sound trembling with restraint. He took one small step closer, close enough for her to feel the air shift. "You're right," he said, his tone a quiet surrender. Her heart fluttered. Every inch of her body felt alert, awake. She could see the hesitation in his expression, the part of him fighting what they both knew was already happening. Their hands brushed again, just barely, but this time neither pulled away. Her fingers curled, grazing his knuckles, and the small contact sent a shiver up her arm. He studied her face, his voice a whisper. "Do you want me to stop?" She opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came. Her eyes said everything instead: fear, want, confusion, all tangled together. He leaned closer, his breath brushing her cheek, his voice almost trembling. "You're shaking," he murmured. "So are you," she replied. A small, breathless laugh escaped her, breaking the tension for half a second, but it came back stronger. The world outside no longer existed, it was just their hearts, their breaths, the soft light between them. His fingers reached up, gently touching her face, the slow drag of his thumb along her jawline making her close her eyes. The air thickened, humming with everything they hadn't said. He leaned in, close enough that their foreheads touched. Time slowed. The moment stretched, fragile and trembling on the edge of something dangerous and beautiful. And just when their lips were about to meet, the candle flickered out. Darkness swallowed the room, and with it, the moment disappeared into silence. The candle had gone out, but neither of them moved. The darkness only made the silence louder, every breath, every heartbeat echoing in the small room. Her eyes adjusted slowly, catching the faint silver of the rain outside. He was still there, so close she could feel the heat of his chest with every shallow inhale. Then came the sound, the faint buzz of her phone lighting up on the nightstand. One message. Then another. She glanced at it, hesitant. His name glowed on the screen, her husband. Her breath caught. The reality of where she was, who she was with, crashed back in like cold water. She reached for the phone, but his hands stopped her halfway. "Don't," he whispered. "Not right now." Her throat tightened. He's probably just checking in." He said nothing, only stepped back, but his silence felt heavier than words. In the dim light, she saw something break across his face: guilt, desire, longing, all at once. "You think I don't know what this looks like," he finally said, voice trembling. "But I can't pretend anymore. I've tried to stay away, tried to bury it, but every time I see you," he stopped, jaw tightening. "It's like I forget how to breathe." Her eyes stung. "Don't say that," she whispered, shaking her head. "It's wrong. Everything about this is wrong." "Then why are you still here?" The words cut through the dark. She didn't have an answer, only the truth pounding inside her chest. She wanted to leave. She should have left. But her body didn't listen. Outside, thunder rolled again, deeper this time, as if the storm itself could sense what was about to happen. She stepped closer, her voice barely audible. "Because it feels real. And I'm tired of pretending that it doesn't." That was all it took. In 2 small steps, he was in front of her again, their faces inches apart. His hand reached for her waist, hesitant but certain. She could smell the rain on his skin, hear the unsteady rhythm of his breath. The tension that had been building for so long finally cracked, not in words, but in the way they looked at each other, desperate and helpless. She whispered, "If someone finds out, they already will," he said quietly, glancing toward the faint light still blinking on her phone. "But maybe it's time the truth did too." Her pulse raced. "You're not serious." "I'm done hiding." The words sank deep into her chest, both terrifying and thrilling. She felt the pull between them, that unstoppable force neither of them could deny anymore. Her hand found his chest, and he closed his eyes at the touch, exhaling shakily. "Tell me to stop," he murmured one last time. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Don't." And in the quiet dark, just before the thunder struck again, they finally gave in, not in words, but in the space where restraint shattered and truth took over. The storm outside reached its peak, thunder rolling, wind pressing against the windows as if urging them to decide. Inside, the air was thick with everything unspoken. Her pulse drummed in her ears as he took a slow step forward, closing the last bit of distance between them. For a moment, neither spoke. It was just the sound of rain, their shallow breaths, and the weight of what they both knew was about to happen. She looked up at him, eyes soft but trembling, and in that instant, something inside her gave way. His hand lifted, brushing along her jaw, his touch gentle but full of intent. She didn't pull back this time. Her fingers found his wrist, holding it there as if afraid he'd let go. "I don't know if this is right," she whispered. He smiled faintly, voice low. "Then let's stop pretending it's wrong." Their lips met, slow at first, searching, uncertain. The tension that had been building between them for so long finally broke open like a dam. It wasn't hurried or reckless, it was desperate and quiet, like a confession whispered too late. Her hands moved to his chest, feeling his heartbeat, fast, real, human. The room seemed to spin, the sound of rain softening, the candlelight flickering back to life in the corner as if it couldn't look away. Every touch was a release, every breath a surrender. Years of silence and restraint melted in that moment, and for the first time in forever, they felt alive again. But then, just as the world seemed to narrow down to only them, something shifted. He stopped, breathless, resting his forehead against hers. "I need to tell you something," he murmured, voice breaking. She looked at him, her chest rising and falling. "What is it?" He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the phone still glowing faintly on the nightstand. "He knows," he said quietly. "He's been reading the messages. He's coming back tonight." The words hit her like a wave. The air changed, from warmth to cold, from surrender to panic. "What?" she whispered, stepping back, her heart pounding. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, voice shaking. "But I couldn't stay away anymore." Her eyes welled. The desire still burned between them, raw and unstoppable, but now it was tangled with fear, guilt, love, everything all at once. The sound of a car door slammed outside. Headlights swept across the window. They stood frozen, torn between what they'd finally found and what they were about to lose. And just as the door handle turned, he whispered, "Whatever happens next, don't regret this." The rain finally eased into a steady whisper by dawn. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered, in the air, in their hearts, in the stillness between them. The candle had long melted away, leaving behind only its faint scent, mixed with the warmth of the night that refused to fade. She sat by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket, watching the faint light crawl over the horizon. He stood a few steps behind her, quiet, unsure of what to say. The room still carried traces of everything that had happened, the tension, the closeness, the truth that could no longer be denied. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "I didn't mean to ruin things for you." She turned slightly, her expression calm but unreadable. "You didn't ruin anything," she said. "You just reminded me what it felt like to be seen." He stepped closer, hesitant. "And now?" She smiled faintly. "Now it's complicated. But real." For a long moment, they said nothing. The weight of the night hung heavy, but it wasn't regret, it was something deeper, softer. She reached for his hand, fingers trembling slightly, and held it between hers. "Maybe we can't change what this means," she whispered, "but I won't pretend it didn't." He knelt beside her, their hands still intertwined. "Whatever happens next, I want you to remember tonight wasn't a mistake." Her eyes glistened. "It wasn't," she said. "It was necessary." Outside, the first rays of sunlight touched the rain-specked glass, turning the droplets into tiny shards of gold. The world looked new again, fragile, hopeful, uncertain. She leaned her head against his shoulder, breathing in the quiet comfort of his presence. The chaos had settled, leaving behind something more honest than desire, connection. He brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering in a silent goodbye that felt almost like a promise. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch one last time, letting the warmth of that moment settle deep in her memory. Whatever came next, questions, consequences, truth, could wait. For now, there was only stillness, only understanding, only the heartbeat of two people who had finally stopped pretending. The story didn't end with a choice, it ended with a feeling. One that would stay long after the rain stopped.